Hey, it's Paul from howtoplaybassdotcom. Welcome to part 2 of Don't Stop Me Now. In this part of the lesson we're going to look at verse 2, the guitar solo which is built on the verse format, and the second chorus. This will then take us through the song. In the second chorus it comes to a low F at the end of that chorus, and then the bass drops out and the piano and the vocal take the song, and then on the record it fades out. So this will complete the song. Now there's a lot of ground to cover today, so I am going to go quite quickly, so you will have to get used to stopping the video, maybe making some notes, go back and look at the play along that I do with the metronome so you can double check rhythms and stuff like that. But it is a great song and it's definitely worth learning all the different parts. You can get through the song pretty much with just the parts that we looked at last week, with only a couple of minor alterations. So if you were learning this for a gig, if you had a gig in 2 or 3 days and you had to learn something to get it for gig standard, or to get it so you could play it with your bandmates at a gig, then the easiest way to do it would be to learn the verse format and the chorus format, put them together and basically repeat the sections for the different sections of the song. So if you were gigging it, I wouldn't recommend learning it all unless you've got a lot of time to put in to learn it and get everything right and get all the different rhythmic variations in your head. But if you're not, and if you're learning it for fun and also learning it for knowledge purposes, there's some great learning to be had by comparing what John Deacon plays in different sections of the verse in different parts of the tune. He does some great things with sustaining long notes, using melodic notes, letting his bandmates take some of the rhythmic function while he plays something melodic. Some great lessons from this tune, from what is theoretically a very straightforward 8th note based tune with a very simple chord progression, but there's some great learnings to be taken from this on how to approach a bass part, vary it up with taste, and come out with something that supports the tune and yet is something that on its own is a recognisable line that just enhances what's going on around it. It's a great piece of bass playing, and it's definitely worth, once you've learnt it, spending some hours of study. So that's the intro to the lesson. Let's go and pick up where we left off from part 1 of the video, and we'll start with verse 2. So let's pick up from where we finished off in part 1. Remember, we had the fill at the end of the first chorus from the B flat, and then we slid down from the octave F at the 13th fret of the E string and hit the downbeat of verse 2, first fret of the E string F. I'll play through verse 2 and we'll talk through the notes, go through it bar by bar. 3, 4. Go into there's an a cappella clapping-y section, drums and clapping, and just prior to the guitar solo. Now notice in the middle of that, great use of space by playing long sustained notes. This is why what you can, as I said in the intro to this video, what I taught last week, you can play through the whole song with that. This is why I wanted to teach the other bits, because there's some bits in it which will really pay you off if you study them, see what John Deacon did. So first 4 bars, very similar to the kind of stuff we looked at in verse 1 in part 1 of the video. You've got 8th notes in F to start with, first fret of the E string. Then we're jumping up to A, which is the open A string. You got a held note in the middle of that bar. Same rhythmic pattern, D, 5th fret of the A string. Then the 4th bar of the pattern, first sustained note. You've got 3/8 notes on the low G, which is the 3rd fret of the E string, and then you jump up to the octave G, which is the 5th fret of the D string, and that's held for the rest of that bar. Next bar, 5th bar, C, which climbs to the F. You've got C's 3rd fret of the A string, then you've got D and E. D is the 5th fret of the A string, E is the 2nd fret of the D string. Next section of the pattern, back to F, starts by playing a long note on the octave of F at the 3rd fret of the D string, then drops down to 8th notes for the rest of the bar on the low F, the 1st fret of the E string. You've got that same pattern on the open A string. Then on the D, and using the open A string allows you to fret the D at the 5th fret of the A string with the 1st finger of your hand, so you can grab the octave that John Deacon plays. He plays something like this, which is D's 5th fret of the A string. Obviously the octave is 7th fret of the G string. So those 2 bars, I'll play the 3 bars actually. And then the next bar is G, 3 8th notes on G at the 5th fret of the D string, the D octave again at 7th fret of the G string, then B flat, 3rd fret of the G string, G, 5th fret of the D string. Then the next bar, this is where it gets interesting. I'll play the next 4 bars. This is where these patterns are really interesting. He throws these big long notes in at the starts of the bar, which really helps break the line up, break the rhythmic feel of the line up, because you've got the guitar and the piano and the drums really pounding along the rhythm. And this line, especially when he gets up to that section, is a bit more melodic, a bit more follows the melody. What John Deacon's basically doing is trading off a bit of the bass's role to add some melodic interest to his line, and trusting his bandmates to carry some of what would normally be his function until he drives back into it. So let's go and look at the notes of that section. The first long note, C, is the 3rd fret of the A string, and then you've got the climb to F, which is C, D, E, 3rd and 5th frets of the A string. E is the 2nd fret of the D string. Then you've got a long note on F, it's actually held for 2 beats, and that's the 3rd fret of the D string. And then you've got, which is 2 Fs, and then A, the 2nd fret of the G string, C, the 5th fret of the G string. And then you've got this melodic pattern I was talking about, which is E flat, the 8th fret of the G string, D, 7th fret of the G string, C, 5th fret of the G string, and then down to B flat. And you've got that syncopated tick to A, or syncopated drive to A, which again really makes that note stand out. So you've got 5 B flats there. B flat's 3rd fret of the G string, A is the 2nd fret of the G string, and then you're down to G, and you've got another long note held for 2.5 beats. So you've got, that's just G, and then you've got this pattern that we saw again in verse 1, which is a combination of F sharp and the open D string. F sharp's the 4th fret of the G string, sorry, 4th fret of the D string. Back to G at the 5th fret, back to that pattern, back to G at the 5th fret, and then you've got the run, which leads you up and leads you out of the section, which is 2 Gs, 3rd fret of the E string, 2 open A strings, 2 B flats, 1st fret of the A string, B natural, 2nd fret, C, 3rd fret of the A string. So you put that together, go back and watch the playthrough with the metronome of this section for the breakdown, cross-reference it with the original, and you should be able to pick that all up. And when you've done that, a great exercise is to go and compare it to verse 1 that we looked at in part 1 of the video, and see what John Deacon's thrown in to add some variety, add some melodic interest to the bass line. So at the end of that section, we've then got 9 bars of clapping and the a cappella stuff before the guitar solo comes in. Let's go and look at this guitar solo.